What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Bankrupt Bros channel. Today we are especially bankrupt. Why? Coronavirus is in full effect. The pros? Plenty of time to work on the Skyline, maybe do a few mods to the LS, and of course get the go-kart back up and running. But the cons are I lost my job thanks to coronavirus. So we're gonna be earning a few bucks today by doing a pretty simple job on this E46 330i. This is my friend's car. The alternator went bad on it, so we just got to swap the alternator out. It's not too bad of a job. Just pull the intake off, pull the radiator fan out, swap the alternator out. I'm gonna time lapse everything. If there's anything special about it, I'm gonna try to record it. I'm gonna try to document it. I'm not gonna guarantee anything though. And then of course, to work on something you need tools, and my tools are in that. And well, obviously, as you can see in here, is a nightmare. So we're just gonna go ahead, clean this sucker up, get my tools together, and I'm gonna start working on this thing. Also gonna throw the battery on a battery tender because we had to use a jump pack to get it here. So I want a little bit of juice in the battery before we start it up, and then this way we could drive it around a bit, charge the battery up, make sure everything's good, and then hopefully he'll be back to daily driving this thing in no time. Alright guys, as you can see, we've got the tender hooked up. It's charging away. There's quite a bit we have to do in the trunk here. As you can see, it's a bit messy. That ground shaft needs to be redone, and that positive wire is actually pretty shaky, so I need to redo that wire too. But we're gonna do that later on. What's important is working on this alternator. Oh, and obviously also cleared the walkway, so now we have easy access to all our fluids and tools. So now we can finally get started on this. It's got an aftermarket AFE intake. So we're gonna get started on taking that out and taking the radiator fan out, and then I'll get back to you guys in a second. And I've also got The Office playing in the background. It's great. I love to have this show playing in the background while I work on stuff. I must have rewatched it like 1,000 times, and I still laugh every single time. So it's great entertainment when you're doing some simple work like this. I hit a nice midway point here, so I decided to quickly stop and just show you what I've done so far and just do a quick explanation. So the first things first was taking off the intake, and you use this 532 hex kind of looking key, and that will take off the little Allen key bolts that's holding the intake on and holding this ring on, which bolts on to the MAF right here. After that, you're gonna pull off the intake, and then next is the radiator. Really simple. You've got two plugs here. They plug in right here, unclip them, and then you've got a T25, which looks like this. I actually got away with using a T20. It's one of those. There's two small bolts holding it on top here. One here, one here. Take both of those out, make sure the clips are undone, and as you guys saw in the time lapse, you just pull that sucker straight out. I'm gonna do a better recording, hopefully, of me putting everything back in. And then you got to take off the belt for the alternator, the serpentine belt. To do that, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. You use a T50, put it on a 3/8, and there's a belt tensioner right down in there. You put that on, turn it clockwise, and it's gonna loosen it up. Just pull the belt off real quick, and now comes the a little bit of finagling. There is two bolts that hold the alternator on, I believe. So you just gotta match up the size. I think they're 15s, so one bolt is up here, the other one's a bit lower. And then you've also got to pull off the positive cable on the back and the clip, that little plug, this little plug right down there. Pull those off, so I'm gonna do that right now. Take out the bolts, and then we're gonna pull this alternator out. Alright guys, quick side note, and it's a bit of advice. If you don't have one of these little magnetic flexible wand things, I highly recommend that you buy one. It's a few bucks and it saves you so much time. What's on the end of it is this little retaining clip. This goes on to the plug that goes onto the alternator, and normally, well, it actually did fall for me just now when I took the alternator off down into the tray. Now, if you don't have one of these, you'd have to dig around. If you can't see it, you're actually gonna have to take the tray off, and that could take 10-15 minutes and really put you out of your way. With this, I literally shoved it down there, moved it around a bit, picked up the clip right away, and now saved me some valuable time. And now I can just slide the sucker back on when I put the new alternator in. Alright guys, so this is how I did the belt. Look up a belt diagram so you could know exactly how it's done, but I started with the idler pulley here. I looped it on top of the water pump, and then it comes back around, and this is the tensioner down here. Wraps around the tensioner, goes around the crank, comes back around, wraps around, what is that, the power steering down there? I believe so. So then it wraps around the power steering, comes up, wraps around the alternator, and then you're back at the beginning. So to get it on down there, all I have to do now is I have to put my my wrench inside the idler pulley, pull it clockwise, and that's gonna move this out of the way. It's gonna move it downwards like that, and that'll give me just enough space to push that sucker down and get onto that power steering. I'm gonna try to see if I could like literally leave this right here to show you guys how I do that. See, this feeds on right here. Put it down here, and then as you see, when you pull it, it pulls it away. So try to do it as much as you can, because it has to go quite a bit to feed on. All right, then you let go. As you can see, oops, I knocked that out of the way, my bad. Let's just shake this out of there. Now you're gonna check back over all your belts and make sure everything is seated correctly. Because I pre-seated everything, it should be just like flawless right now. First time around, as long as you do it right, it'll be no problem. So see, all the belts and everything is seated everywhere it needs to be seated properly. You can just go ahead and run your fingers along the sides here. I'm gonna do that right now with the power steering, just to make sure it's seated on there, as long as it's nice and flat feeling. Alternator, good to go. There's nice tension on the belt, as you can see. Perfect. Now the car is technically good to go. You throw the math back in there, you can start the sucker up and see if it's working. But I have confidence that I did it correctly, so let's just go ahead and put her back together. I'm just gonna keep this running straight. So let's drop this down here and keep it going. Alright guys, so I just got back from lunch. The alternator's done. Now let's hop into the trunk, finish up those cables. So get the trunk open, let's get a light. And let's get into this trunk. Now I know it's nightmarish in here, but bear with me. So this ground cable, I'm not really sure how the hell this even happened, but it happened. So we've got a cable from the battery going to the distribution block, which is used for power typically, and then going to the chassis. So to remedy that, I made a brand new 0 gauge new concepts ground with some nice copper terminals. It's soldered and everything, so that's good to go. Now I just gotta throw some heat shrink on it, and then I'm gonna take this apart and see if I can make a terminal for this too. Because obviously this situation. Oh shit! That's not supposed to happen. Literally, this screw, you saw a screw was in here, which is what was holding that onto this. So obviously that's not gonna fly anymore. So definitely got to figure this situation out too. Alright guys, so we've got the new terminals installed. So this is my new ground wire, 0 gauge, done upright, nice and strong, and as you can see we got lights so it works. And what I did was I kept the stock terminal, I just like grinded it down so that it would work, and I basically flipped it around, grinded it down, and as you can see, nice and strong, works just fine. You don't have to buy another one. So time for me to pull all my crap out of there. And you know what, let's just see if she starts up. If she doesn't start them, you do have a grounding problem. So that's a quick way to find out whether or not what you did works, if your car starts. Beautiful. No lights on the dash. All right, cool.